The Dice Tower, episode 631.
Introductory games. Does that make you Ginger?
No. No, it does not make me Ginger Rogers.
Oh,
maybe it makes me the king of town, or Mr. McFeely. How about that?
Huh. You could be Mr. McFeely.
Cool. Thanks. Or the trolley.
I'm telling you, I think I said this before in the show, but this whole thing is the whole thing about Mr. Rogers was always that as a kid, I distinctly, very, very, very distinctly remember that I would see that trolley go into the wall and it went into another world. Mm-hmm. And then I watched really carefully at the beginning of every episode as it zoomed in on his house from above, looking where that world was, because it had to be in that picture somewhere. I saw the trolley car go through the wall.
Right.
But I couldn't see it on the outside anywhere. I figured you'd see the kingdom.
Well, but it's the land of make-believe.
Well, you know what? That didn't occur to me.
Well, that's fine. This is one of those things you have to piece out for yourself.
Yes, thank you.
It's one of the mysteries of the show.
I didn't believe in Santa Claus, but I did believe in that other side of the wall from Mr. Rogers.
Yes. What is the mailing address? I want to know.
Well, I'm still intrigued by little model railroad trains and the little lands they live in. I don't know. I find that stuff fascinating.
Sure.
I was just looking at a Christmas one the other day thinking how cool it was.
Awesome.
Welcome to our board game show, folks. I'm Tom Vassell.
Hi there. I'm Eric Summerer. How's your jet lag, Tom?
I'm over it. I was over it in 3 days.
Okay.
Because I really pushed hard through it So we got back from Essen. We got back from the big Essen game fair. And we both are parents of children. And Halloween was on Thursday. We could not afford to go to sleep early. Well, maybe you can, Eric. But we had a little festival at our church, and so we always make these booths or stands or things. So this year I built a marble ramp.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got all these tubes, and I attached them together. I made this big marble ramp that went in and out. And then I would show the kids some marbles. Each kid would pick a marble. You roll them down the ramp, and if you won, you got candy. If you didn't, you could play again until you got candy, or I felt sorry for you and gave you candy because, no one was going to go away without candy, right?
Sure. Okay.
But it was really fun, it took a while to put together. It took us about 2 hours. I did a lot of practicing beforehand, but we were able to make it so that the marbles would switch positions at the curves and drops.
Nice.
And that's what I want to happen.
Right. Yeah, you got to have them jockey around.
Anyway, I'm saying all that because I had to get over jet lag, so I really pushed myself. The first night wasn't so bad. The second night was hard.
Yeah.
But then I played board games that night, and so I was able to pull it off. What about you? Are you still jet lagged? It's been a week.
No, it's not. It's more just a general fatigue. But
you didn't ask about that.
Yeah. No, I think I understand what time it is, and I haven't really been messed up. It's just general travel fatigue. I'm getting over it though.
Whew. Well, we're not going to go into the Essen Fair too much, folks, because it was big, it was long, it was very tiring, it was great. And there's a gazillion games that came out. It was awesome, but it still is not one of my favorites. I mean, there's things I really like about it. I really like meeting people from all over the world and publishers from all over the world. It's just very tiring. And maybe it's just because of my position at it where I have to run around and do a lot of meetings.
Could be. Yeah, I think it's still probably my favorite event of the year, just because it's so different from everything else. Yes, it is exhausting. That's a given. But I think the excitement of people from all over the world getting to meet people I don't normally get to interact with, just the general fair atmosphere, it overcomes that exhaustion for me.
Well, you can ignore Eric slightly there, if only because Dice Tower Cruise is definitely better. But let him think what he wants. Speaking of that, folks, if you want to come to Dice Tower West and Dice Tower East, all these new hot Essen games, that's where they're going. Well,
yes,
if they're good. And
they make the cut.
Yeah, and we're going through them a bit at a time. It's going to take me months, okay? I know we're going to get questions. What do you think about this game? Well, it's somewhere on the queue. Happily, we're going to talk about some of these today.
Yes.
And we'll start with Eric, a game that I think he and I both played separately.
We did. This is a puzzle game called Project L. In fact, we talked about this as one of the games we were looking forward to playing in our Essen preview episode. It is not only a puzzle game, but also an engine-building game. Everybody starts out with two pieces, a 1x1 piece and a 1x2 piece. They're little plastic pieces, different colors, nice and
they look like Tetris pieces.
They do, of varying sizes. And you also have a bunch, like a row of these puzzle cards in the center of the table. There are easy puzzles and difficult puzzles. The difficult ones need, obviously, more pieces to complete, but they're worth more points. And then the easy ones are very quick to complete, but they're only worth maybe 1 or 2 points, if any at all. You have 3 actions on your turn. You can take a new piece, a new 1x1 piece. You can upgrade one of your pieces. So you can upgrade the 1 into a 2. You can upgrade the 2 into a 3, so like an elbow piece or a straight. You can upgrade a 3 into a 4 in varying shapes. You can also take one of the puzzles from the center of the table. These are these nice, thick tiles almost. They're not really cards. They're like tiles, like double layered so that there's a little divot for all the pieces to fit inside. You draft one of these and you put it in front of you. You can have up to 4 in front of you. Or you can place one of your pieces on one of your puzzles. You also have what they call the master action, where you can place one piece on all of the puzzles that you have in front of you. So it's beneficial to take many puzzles, but if you do that too much or too early, you're going to run out of pieces trying to do too many master actions. When you complete a puzzle, not only are you going to score those points and you get those pieces back, you also get a new piece. It's up in the corner of the card, so you'll now have more pieces to complete more puzzles. This continues until the stack of the difficult puzzles runs out. You sort of do one more round for everybody, so everyone has the same number of turns. Count up your points. That is it. I was really taken with this game. I think it does exactly what it's trying to do. It's an engine-building puzzle game. A lot of the time, these types of games, like Ubongo comes to mind, are speed games, where you're trying to move these pieces around really, really quickly. Whoever does it the fastest is going to win. That's not the case here. You can take your time. You can figure things out. You take your actions. It's much more of an efficiency game than a speed game. Mm-hmm. But it also is very straightforward. It's simple. It has that Splendor feel to me. Where you've got the different puzzles, you're drafting them away from other people, and it's all about the pivot point of when you stop doing the easy puzzles to get more pieces and switching to the more difficult puzzles to get more points. And the only real downside here, and the reason why it is not on my list of top 10 introductory games, because I think it would be on there, is that it is not yet available. They're having production issues. They're trying to get that double layer tile thing to work the way they want it to. So it is not yet out. If it were, I think they would have sold out at Essen because they were demoing really, really well. And it would most definitely be on my list somewhere. So I think Project L is a solid hit. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, so I'm looking here. This was a Kickstarter. And I honestly don't remember this being on Kickstarter. I'm looking at it, and it raised, it was a big Kickstarter. It was 165,000 euros.
Wow.
Yeah, but when I looked at it, I'm like, Tetris on a board, been there, done that. That was my opinion. Mm-hmm. And because there is a lot of these games, the three-dimensional part of it helps a lot. It's totally unnecessary. These could have been tiles.
Sure.
The boards could have been cards. And I even might wonder that cards might not have been a horrible idea. It would have saved a lot on the costs of the game.
Sure. And it probably would have fixed the issues that they're having right now because it's that two-layer thing that's messing them up.
That being said, it's really nice and awesome. My only complaint about the game is it does one of those things that kind of irritates me, is that it talks about rules that don't exist unless you have the extra Kickstarter stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is this? They call them ghost pieces. I'm like, where are these ghost pieces? Oh, that's Kickstarter only stuff. I don't know why. That just bugs me a bit.
Yeah. It was an expansion. I think you can purchase the expansion as its own standalone thing.
Yeah, but it's in the rule book.
Right.
For the base game. I don't know which one I like better, right? To have to go through multiple rule books when you put expansions in a game. To have it in the main rule book, but then no, you don't have it. It's kind of a toss-up, I guess.
Yeah, I guess if you don't have it, it would be best to have that information not in front of you. It's on the player aid as well. Everybody has this little dashboard.
That's where it was more
of
an annoyance on the player aid
right.
instead of the rule book.
I mean, I guess what I would prefer in that case is to not have it on the base game, and then like you get the expansion and you have stickers that you can put over that include the new rules or a new player aid entirely. That would be my preference, so that whatever version of the game you have is the thing that matches your information.
I would also agree with Eric in that he says, I think he said that this is really not a puzzle game. It looks like a puzzle game, but it's really not one. It's really an engine building game. You don't have to be very good at Tetris or figuring out spatial problems. You're probably going to fit all your pieces in. If you're good with spatial things, you might be slightly better, and that could be the edge in winning between two people who are equal.
Right.
But it's all about, hey, taking that master action that lets you put one and having several puzzles and being able to quickly do your actions. I think that works pretty well.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. That's Project L.
From the name of the company is Board Cubator.
That is correct.
Yes.
Not a cool name. But all right.
No.
So speaking of blocks, I'm talking about Minecraft. Or specifically, it's called Minecraft Builders and Biomes.
Mm-hmm.
This is from Ravensburger. This game here is one that when I heard about it, I thought the same thing I always think when I hear about a new IP game, that it would be a cash grab. And it probably was, because when I said to my kids, do you want to play Minecraft, they were like, what? There's a Minecraft board game?
Uh-huh.
But it's actually pretty good. So what it does is you have a bunch of these wooden cubes that you build this big giant cube out of. You put them all in a stack. There's a little cardboard thing that lets you do it. And there's 4 different colors, I think. No, there's 5 colors. There's wood, stone. I forget what they are. There's gray, light brown, dark brown, and green, which apparently means emerald. And then you have these stacks of tiles that you put in the middle of the table. And what you're doing is you're moving your person around. On your turn, you have 2 actions. You can move your person from intersection to intersection. And when you do that, you'll reveal the tiles next to that intersection. Some of these are weapons. Some of them are enemies, mobs. And some of them are things that you can build, biomes that you can build. So on your turn, you can move for an action. You can take 2 blocks off this big cube, but you can only take blocks that you can see the top of and at least 2 other edges. And you can build a biome. Each biome will have a certain cost to it. And then you'll place that in a little game board in front of you. And you can fight you can pick up a weapon if you see one, or you can fight a monster. If you fight a monster, you have a bunch of starting tiles, and any weapons you get added to that. You shuffle them together, and you draw 3. And if you draw enough hearts to kill the monster, you kill it. If you don't, well, you just miss, and you'll have to try again. 3 of your starting tiles are poison potatoes. Yes. So if you draw those, too bad. So you want to seed your deck with more weapons so that you can kill these bad guys. So that's pretty cool. I mean, there's a little bit of luck there. When the top level of blocks has been taken off this cube, then you'll score, and you score for biomes on your board. You pick one group and score for that group, and you'll get points depending on what the group is. But the groups will change. Like on the first round, there's 3 rounds of scoring. On the first round, it's the type of terrain. The second round, it's like a type of building, a castle that's there. And the third round, it's a type of building that's there. It's fairly strategic. It's fairly light, too, but I really enjoyed it. Yes, there's luck in fighting the mobs, and there's a little bit of luck on the stuff that comes up, but there's a lot of good decisions, and the taking 2 actions is really fast and simple. And my kids were satisfied that it passed the Is It Like Minecraft test. And it looks like Minecraft. I don't play a ton of Minecraft. I'm a 2D guy, so I played Terraria. But this definitely gives me that feeling. They knew the names of the monsters. You are actually physically building stuff. It has the Minecraft art in it. I think this is a good game. So
I took home a copy of this as well, and it does seem like a pretty faithful translation of Minecraft, and it has more depth to it than what I would consider a straight up cash grab. It actually feels like a real game. I have not yet played it with the kids, but it is one I've read through the rules, and it looks like a pretty solid one. One note, you mentioned the word MOB. I was actually corrected by one of my publishers in a video game style book that MOB is pronounced MOB in this particular genre.
Is it really?
But apparently, well, it's short for mobile, but there's a lot of controversy around that as well. So if you just like said it on some sort of internet forum or a podcast somewhere, people will come out and go, no, it's mob. You don't know what you're talking about. But I had to re-record a whole bunch of mobs to be mobs in a book I did.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's online. It seems that it's saying mob unless you're actually talking about a violent crowd of people.
Because you can have a single object that is a mob, but a group could be a mob. Yeah. It could be a mob of mobs.
I still don't get this. This is one of those pieces of jargon that seems weird to me since Monster seemed like it was covering this okay. Now, granted, I know that mobs... Oh, it's so weird to say that.
It's hard. It's really
can be
hard
other things too, like humans and whatever. I just have always called them bad guys or monsters. But I know that this is a new thing, and although my kids, when I mentioned this, did not know that, but that's because they play Minecraft mostly solo, and so to them they just call the stuff monsters.
Right. Sure.
Anyway, I think I was glad that my kids liked it and that it was a game I enjoyed playing with them. So there you go, Minecraft Builders and Biomes.
Cool. Next for me, another new one from Essen Spiel is from Quinid Games. This is called Terra Mara. This is a rather in-depth worker placement game. The board is made up of several multiple-sided or two-sided tiles, but there's multiple versions of each tile. There's 3 eras of the game, actually 5 entire turns, but your first 2 turns are in era 1, and then era 2, and then era 3 for the final turn of the game. And there are twice as many tiles as you need for all these different eras. So you shuffle them all up, and you basically puzzle your board all together. And you have a bunch of, they call them explorers, that you will be placing to earn resources to then build cards and a lot of the same stuff that you would normally be doing in any of these types of games, eventually earning points for all of this stuff. The twist in Terramara is that I mentioned these eras. So you're in round 1 of the game. You're in era 1. So you've got a current row of actions that you can choose from. You can also choose actions that are in the future in round 2, 3, 4, even 5. But you only get the workers back when you have finished that round. So if I place a worker in round 3's action, it's going to be a more powerful action. I get some really cool stuff right now, but that explorer is stuck there until round 3 finishes. So what do I do? Do I do the little tiny actions? Sometimes I've run out of space on the board and I have to take something that's a little stronger. There are certain spaces that can only hold 2 people. You have sort of a ranking of your explorers. If you have more military power than your opponents, you can place a second explorer if you outrank that person, but then you're going to lose some of that military strength because you muscled your way into the space. There's also sort of an exploration track on the side of the board. There's a river track, which is the culture. All of these things will get you bonuses as you move your way along them and build cards and do lots of things. This is very much a point salad style game in the worker placement genre. I enjoyed it. It is very, it almost has a Feast for Odin sense of overwhelming when you first look at all of your possibilities. But those possibilities are going to narrow as the game continues because these tiles in the center of the board flip over. And the same actions will not be available to you from round to round. Some of the ones you may have relied on will not be there in the future and become other things, area majority spaces, other spaces that you have to have moved down that exploration track some in order to use. I did enjoy this, but it is definitely a mental workout to work your way through this game. A couple of minor production complaints on my side. That exploration track is populated by these wagon meeples, which look great, but there's not enough space on the board to fit more than maybe 2 of them side by side, and everybody starts with 2 of them each in the same space. So you're sort of like piling them on top of each other, and it was a little messy. I wish the board had been just a little bigger to fit all the wagon meeples, but that's a minor quibble. Ultimately, I think it's a good, challenging worker placement game. Lots of options, lots of variety, thanks to all those different tiles. And I did enjoy it. Terra Mara from Quinid Games.
This is one I'm looking forward to. It does have this, as you know, the a look of same old, but I'm hoping it's good.
Yeah, I think that twist of the future actions is where this is really going to lie. How many workers do you sacrifice to the future in order to get some really powerful actions? I did a couple, but then I was really hurting as other players had all of their workers, and I had one just sitting there on the board I wasn't getting for 2 more rounds.
My next game is from Cosmodrone, who last year made a stir when they released amongst a pile of OK games Smartphone, which got some very good buzz. This year they had a couple games, but the game getting the most buzz was Aquatica, which is a game about you controlling some big underwater kingdom, and you are going to be expanding your domain. Now, what this does is it takes the card play from games like, I don't know, Concordia. So everyone has a handful of cards, and on your turn, you're going to play a card from your hand. You start with a mostly symmetrical hand. Each person has one card that's slightly different. You play that card, take the action on that card, and one of the cards, when you play it, lets you pick all your cards back up. And what you're doing with these is you are getting more people to join your Aqua Force, whatever it is. So you get new cards that are better than the cards that you have. Or you can conquer and or buy lands that are out there. So I might have a card that says pay a coin. You gain a coin, and then you can buy a land on the board. Unfortunately, most lands cost 3 or 4 coins maybe, so it's going to be a hard thing to do. However, each player starts with some mantas. They're actually little plastic manta rays, and you will take these, and you can flip them over at any time you want to get their powers. So it might say +1 coin, +1 attack, +2 attack against a volcanic island or whatever.
Okay.
And so you'll do that. Now, what makes the game really interesting, though, is when you do conquer and or buy a land, you're going to stick that underneath your board. That land has multiple things. First of all, it will have bonuses on the side. It might say +3 coins. It might say +2 attack. And you can, as a free action, slide that card up to use that bonus. So if it has multiple bonuses on the side, you can use it multiple times. Occasionally, though, there is an empty space on the side. And when that happens, you can't slide it up until you either play a card from your hand that lets you slide a card up. You also have a manta ray you can flip that lets you slide a card up 1 space. When you finish sliding a card all the way to the top, you've slid it past all its bonus actions and or empty spaces, sometimes they give you a new manta ray. So you can have more manta rays that give you extra bonuses that you can flip over. By the way, the card that you play that lets you take all the cards back in your hand also unflips all your manta rays.
Oh, neat.
So you can use them multiple times. And then if you finish a card completely, it will score you points. But you have to play a card from your hand that lets you score a card. So you have to push it all the way to the top and then play something that lets you put it in your score pile. If you don't put it in your score pile and the game ends, you don't get points. Then there's also bonuses that you will get throughout the game, depending on which bonuses you start. Like a bonus might be you have 5 used manta rays. If you're the first person to do that, 8 points or whatever. Or you have 10 cards in your hand. There's 4 printed on the board, but you can change them up to have different bonuses. That's it. The game ends when one of the decks runs out, or there's a few end game victor conditions, but it's about 45 minutes to an hour. And it's awesome. I've always liked this mechanism of play cards, and then you have to play one to retrieve them. This has been used in several games, but this is this whole game. And as time goes by, you're trying to figure out a combo like, I'll push this card up 1. That one lets me push 2 other cards up. I push these 2 up, which gives me an attack. I attack this island. When I get this island, then immediately push that up to score this other card. And it just feels cool. You're making these neat combos. The plastic manta rays are neat. But that's basically it. It's like a really small, fun engine builder with some really beautiful artwork, some underwater seas and stuff. This is not in wide distribution yet. I know that they sold out at Essen itself, but I have high hopes. Pretty confident this one will be reprinted. So there's no worry about that one. That's Aquatica from Cosmodrome.
Cool. Let's go back a few years, away from the Essen releases. One of Tom's favorite things is when people claim to play really advanced games with their young children. That's right, Tom, right?
Yes, I feel the same way about that Jay Leno feels about dogs wearing clothes.
Excellent. Good. So my youngest happened to see Scythe on the shelf and saw the mechs printed as a display on the box and said, "Dad, when can we play that?" And I was explaining to him that, well, that's Scythe. It's a pretty advanced game, but it is sort of related to My Little Scythe, which he has played and enjoyed. And he kept asking, can we play this? And his pick for family game night came up. He says, "I want to play Scythe." Okay. I'm trying to manage expectations. All right, buddy, there's gonna be some rules. It's gonna be complicated. I will do it if you want to do it, but just know that this is going to be a heavier game. And he's like, "No, I want to do it. I want to play. I want to do this thing." And so we bring it out, and it's been a while since I've taught Scythe. I had to sort of work my way through all of the setup and everything. And I get through like 2 rules, and he starts asking, "Okay, can we start now?" No, we need to sort of work our way through all of this. But how about I make up my own rules? Which I was very resistant. Let's play the full game once, and then we can start playing with the pieces for other reasons. We did eventually get through the rules, and we played a truncated game. Scythe plays to 6 stars, 6 of the achievements. That lots of different things: military victories, technological
but
achievements.
Eric played till 1.
Yeah. Yes. So we played to 3 of the stars. And he figured it out. The transition, the reason I wanted to talk about this is My Little Scythe is very much a distilled version of Scythe. It has a lot of the same mechanisms. And in teaching the big version, the Big Brother game, knowing My Little Scythe was actually quite helpful because several of the actions and the achievements had a direct correlation, and he knew that instantly to be able to say, "Oh yeah, I get that." He did not win after our 3-star game, but my eldest, my 11-year-old, only lost by 1 coin in the end when we totaled things up. So he got it very well, and the 8-year-old, I think, could jump right in. Again, not understanding every little nuance of the game, but it was a successful teach of Scythe with the 8 and 11-year-old.
Sure, but I guess I'm more interested in, are they wanting to play it again?
The 11-year-old is. The 8-year-old is, I think, more resistant. I think it was less joyous for him than I think he wanted, and I think he wanted to make pew-pew noises with the mechs.
I'm still not sure which of your 2 children is the bigger gamer.
I'm not sure either. The 8-year-old really wants to play D&D right now.
Well, that seems legit.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna be the game master?
Actually, the 11-year-old is currently the game master. We're playing through the Dungeons and Dragons starter set.
Wait a minute, and the younger one is still alive?
Yes, because the older one is still playing. Like he's going through the adventure, the pre-printed adventure in the starter set, and yeah, so far we're still alive. We haven't been able to play for very long in a session, so we've like entered the mouth of a cave, and that's about it.
All right. Okay, Ticket to Ride has come out with 2 more maps at Essen. They came out with map 6.5, Poland, which I have not yet played. That's like a one-time thing only in Poland.
Jason was super excited about this. He kept like throwing in people's faces, 6.5! You got to run it by 6.5! I'm like, I'm not playing the maps I have. I don't need 6.5.
Well, I actually played the new official map, the 7th in the map series. And I'm going to do a top 10 one day of the... I might do it now that I've played these. But this is Italy and Japan. This is easily the biggest map. It is a 4-fold board, an 8-fold board, as opposed to their 6-fold boards that they are sometimes.
Oh.
So on one side is Italy, and the other side is Japan. One of these sides is excellent. The other side is actually, I think, my least favorite map.
Okay.
Which one's which? Guess.
Japan is your favorite.
I didn't say it was my favorite. I said one of my favorites. But yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about my least favorite, and I'll tell you why. So the Italy map is a very long map. It's very normal in many ways, except it has ferries on it. but these are slightly different than the ferries that have been in other games. So there's these big gray roots on the map, and they show ferry cards on them, and to play on those you need a ferry, and it's another deck of cards that's next to the board. So you can draw a ferry if you have 2 or less ferries. No, I'm sorry. If you have 2 or more, you can't draw. Essentially, you can draw up to 2. You can draw 1, and if you're holding one, you can draw another one. And then you can play on these gray routes using the ferries to use on the ferry spots, and then like red trains or whatever to use on the other spots. Okay, that's okay. I don't mind that as much. It's an interesting thing, but it is also very telegraphical in the sense that I took a ferry card. Well, I wonder what he's trying to do. You know, it's very obvious what you're going to be doing. So that's okay. It's kind of a tight, skinny map, even though it's big. It has multiple countries. But at the end of the game, you get bonus points for every region that you have connected in each of your basically networks of trains. These regions are all different colors, like a map of America where they decide to color every state a different color. This is Italy, where they're all different colors, and the cities in them are different symbols. Not only that, but some regions, if you connect to every city in that region, counts as an extra region for purposes of counting this. So if you get 5 regions connected in this group, you get a point. If you get 15 or more, you get like 50-some points. So it's not a nothing. It's not a nothing thing. You really need to be paying attention to this.
Right.
The problem is the board, as much as I like a cacophony of color splattered on the board, it's really hard to see it at a glance. I'm sitting there going, am I connected to 6 regions or 8? Hang on, I'm going to sit there and count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no like track or anything.
Yeah.
You're just like, all right, I guess, and you have to count all the time. And I found it to be a big pain. Not only was it a big pain, but it didn't feel like the game pointed you. Yes, you want to do that, but that just happens naturally by you connecting the routes in the first place. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel like it did anything different. Yeah, but you're spreading out anyway, so it's kind of like we're giving you a reward for something you're already doing. Now, the only difference is at the end of the game, in the last few turns, you might go, all right, I'm going to connect to some more territories instead of drawing more tickets from the pile. Fine. So that's the difference. I didn't dislike it. I'm just saying it was my least favorite. On the other side, though, I do love the Japanese side. On the Japanese side, there's a couple cool features. One, in the middle, there's like a side little area of Tokyo. And so if you connect to Tokyo, you then you can connect to a city on that smaller map because there's a Tokyo in the middle of the smaller map.
Oh, so there's like a subway map inside Tokyo.
Yeah, it's like a zoomed in section. So that's kind of neat, right?
That's cool.
But what's really different about this one is there's all the gray routes on this map are high-speed trains. And so if you connect like a 3 gray route there, instead of putting your own trains on it, you put 1 high-speed train. They come with this. They're these little models. And now that's connected to it. And then you move up 3 on the high-speed train track because you're supposed to be helping build this rail. At the end of the game, whoever helps the most on here will get points, and whoever helps the least will lose points. Okay, so that's kind of cool. And you need to do this because in this game, you start with only 20 trains rather than the 45 you normally do.
So you need the Shinkansen in order to connect to where you're trying to go.
Yes, the high-speed trains for all those who aren't Japanese nerds like Eric. But
Shinkansen.
Here's what's really cool about these high-speed trains. Once you build it, anyone can use them to connect routes. So you have these routes, once you get this high-speed train, and it's possible to have it go from one end of Japan to the other, you might use very few of your trains to connect routes because you're using this big one. It's much harder to block people in this one since people can use this same big train network, which is fine. Not all ticket rides need to be about blocking people. And I feel like it offers some pretty neat strategies. The tickets are lower. There's even a 1-point ticket in this deck, which I found hilarious. It almost felt like it was more work to do than the point. Like, woohoo.
To get it, yeah.
But I really liked it. I like how the trains look. It just felt different than the other maps. It was something cool. And seems like it would play faster because you only have 20 trains, but the game end trigger is you have 2 or less trains, and the high-speed trains, there are 2 or less of them.
Ah, okay.
So there's a few other minor things, but that's pretty much how that works. So would I recommend this? Sure. Because I would have gotten it if it was just one map anyway. And you may like the Italy map more than me. I may be being just too hard on it.
Sure.
Because it's not doing anything exactly super new. I just felt like the scoring was... I could not look at the board and figure out how many territories people had without sitting there and just straight up physically pointing at them and counting them.
Yeah, I mean, most Ticket to Ride versions come with... does this one come with trains, or it's just the map?
It's just the map.
Okay, so you've got
it also
extra
comes
trains that come with... It
Right.
also comes with the Shinkansen high-speed trains.
It comes with the high-speed trains, and it comes with some score markers for that side of the board, too, because you keep track of how much you help build those trains.
Right. So I'm wondering if putting a second marker, like one of the extra trains, perhaps, on the scoreboard to say how many regions you've connected to would be helpful and reduce some of that frustration.
Yeah, I think so. That might help. And so I'm not going to say that it's bad for that reason, I guess. I'm just saying it's my least favorite so far.
Gotcha.
So we'll see. But, I really do like the Japanese side a lot. So, all right. That is Ticket to Ride, Japan, and Italy. Speaking of... Give me a segue, Eric. Speaking of getting points, kind of. Let's go to Jeff.
Yeah. Saving.
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play. I'm repeating a song, it's going too long. I also hate it because I'd rather live in a city under air conditioning. It's also really hot here, it's Halloween.
Is it really hot? I think it's supposed to be like 80s this week, right?
Alexa, what's the current temperature?
Right now, it's 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, expect a low of 75 degrees.
Ooh, low of 75.
That sounds awesome. We're going to pack shorts.
Hey, man, I like it. I will say, though, that Halloween, I decided to wear a suit coat, and I was like, why was I so stupid? All right, here we go. Coming on after Jeff, if you're watching this, Jeff talked about the sweet spot. And if you want to know more about that, got to listen to the audio. Here we go. I like this in theory, but I might hate it in gameplay.
Oh, really? I mean, so I love this sort of thing. And it's one of the reasons why, here we go, we're going to talk about my favorite game again. It's one of the reasons why I like the classic Merchant of Venus versus the new Merchant of Venus, the standard Fantasy Flight Edition. Because in the original, you have this push-pull trade-off of how you upgrade your ship. If I get a big ship, it's going to move more slowly, and I have to find ways around that. If I go for a very small, fast ship, I don't have a whole lot of cargo space. In the standard edition, you can just keep buying stuff. You just keep bolting things onto the side of your ship, and so I can have a really fast ship with a whole bunch of cargo space if I spend enough resources to do that, and it's not the same trade-off in my final product of what a ship is. And I far prefer having to make that sweet spot decision. What is the best choice for the board position right now versus more, better, good? So I like this.
I disagree. I like more, better, good. It's fun to have big setups. I hate making those decisions. I mean, I think it's actually a good game mechanism, but man, I sit there and I'm just like, oh, look at this cool combo I can make now.
That's the tagline for that latest Kickstarter, right? More, better, good.
That'll be the tagline of Dice Tower 2020 Kickstarter.
More, better, good.
Finally, grammar.
That sounds great. I'm excited.
All right, let's jump to some questions. I'm first.
Okay.
John says, I love legacy games and the escape room games. And now he's playing through Pandemic Season 1 for the third time. The first time in 3 years, and he's loving it. But he says it helps because he's playing with his wife who's experiencing it for the first time. Have either of you gone back through a legacy game or the escape room games and found you enjoyed it even without the surprises? I can't imagine doing an escape room again. Even if I forgot a lot of the stuff, I would remember the funny, cool twists.
Yeah. I have run some of the escape room games after I have gone through them. And I enjoy doing that as a guide because I know maybe some of the pitfalls that were like major issues and can help them along without necessarily using the clue system in the game. And I enjoy seeing where they get stuck versus where I got stuck. That's actually a lot of fun.
Sure. No, that's different though. I don't count that. I mean, I gladly run something for people again. For Pandemic, I think it's okay to play through a second time. I started playing through Season 1 and then we never finished it a second time. But that was because the other players weren't as intrigued as I was. I like the concept of it, but it would lose something with the playthrough. I think Clank Legacy you could play through a second time. But that's about it. I can think of. The rest of them, there's a lot of surprises.
I mean, I think playing through a legacy game again wouldn't be that big a deal because it's much more the in-between game plot twists that you'd know about, but you still have to play through the game. You still have to succeed in a particular mission. I've heard folks that play through Season 1 of Pandemic that even though they know where the plot is headed, they still sort of play in a similar fashion because that's the way the game asks them to do it.
He also says he loves Pandemic and Pandemic Legacy, but he hasn't played all the other expansions or additions that much. What are your favorites? Well, I like Pandemic Legacy Season 2 a lot, but as time has gone by, I wonder if I like it the same as 1. And of the other expansions, I like, what's the one where you have to cure the stuff?
Well, that's all of them, right? You mean in the lab?
Sorry, in the lab, where you actually have to do the physical act of curing the disease. I wouldn't want to play that one all the time, but it's a nice variant to the base game.
It is an interesting layer to put over everything else, yes.
What about you?
I like In the Lab as well. On the Brink is the first expansion. That is almost a must-buy just because of all the new roles.
Yeah, but they almost could put all those new roles in the base game and people wouldn't notice that much, I think.
It's true. That's the most easily folded into the base game. I didn't like State of Emergency as much. It's still an interesting variant because you get this extra hinterlands section of the board. It was interesting, but not one that I'm demanding to go back to all the time. So I would say In the Lab is the most interesting of the expansions.
And Eric also likes The Cure.
I do indeed.
That's the dice version. And then John says, any news on Season 3? Well, all I can say is it's going to come out in 2020.
Okay. Intriguing. Simon says, this fall, filming on the Amazon Prime TV adaptation of Robert Jordan's epic fantasy series begins. Me and many others... What was that?
The Wheel of Time.
That is correct. Simon and many others predict this to be the next big fantasy hit series, and as a huge fan of the book series and board games, I can't help but wonder who's going to snatch this IP up and make a board game of it. Who do you think it will be?
So we're just supposed to guess the company? All right, let's see. Who picks up games for IPs? So
Fantasy Flight.
Well, yeah, but they're not the only ones. You got a lot coming from Gale Force 9.
That's true.
I don't know. I also don't know that this might be the next big fantasy hit. Maybe this new Witcher series will be a big hit.
Yeah, there have been a couple of Witcher games.
That's true. Well, I'm sorry. I was getting off topic. For Wheel of Time, I don't even know how you'd play a game about that. It'd have to be based on a specific part of it, I think.
Like a piecemeal, this section, this battle, this confrontation. Yeah, that makes sense. You don't. Then you're not forced to try and cram everything into one game.
I don't think you could even cram everything into a book.
Bonus question from Simon. I keep hearing Sam mention this third game in the Midgard series that's supposedly the more Ameritrashy of the three games. Where does this information come from? No matter what I Google or scream at my Google Home, I can't seem to find as much as a whisper of this. I believe Sam once called it Sagas of Midgard.
I don't know what it's called, but yes, there definitely is a third game because the publisher has told us such. And that's about all I know. But they told me there's a third game and it will be the most Ameritrashy of the three games. I'm assuming since the other two were Kickstarted, or at least the second one was, that it will be Kickstarted at some point. Alrighty, now we got a bunch of questions here from Nick, who wants us to pull back the curtain on the Dice Tower.
Okay, you asked for it.
That's true. Is the Dice Tower organized as a non-profit?
No.
You don't know that. But
actually I don't.
But it's true. I will say that arguably the profit part, we might as well be no.
It's not the same thing if it's just effectively non-profit.
What is the process for adding new content to the Dice Tower, like new segments and such? I don't know. I just kind of do it as attracts me to it. I think we're getting pickier over the years. I try to find better content. You know, it used to be, if you email me, I'd be like, yes, you're in. I mean, that's how we've got our co-hosts before. But
wait, what?
Nothing. I'm telling the truth.
Who did I audition for then?
Oh, that was me with a hollow skin.
Ah.
I'm not the real Tom Bassett. There's been a Tom Bassett for a long time.
You're just the latest
the previous
in the line
one
of
pass
Tom
on. It's kind of like the great Dread Pirate Roberts.
Dread Pirate Roberts, yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, no, but I mean, basically it used to be though, if you wanted to be on the show, you probably could get on. Now I'm a little bit more picky. I'm just looking for something different, really. The process is normally people email me and say, I got content, and I go, we could use that or we can't. And if I say we can't, it's not because I hate it or don't want you or think you're awful. It's just that we can't have everything on the show. Now for the tough questions. When you make a fairly drastic change, what is the typical ratio of good to bad feedback?
Ooh. The negatives are almost always more vocal than the positives.
Yeah, I would say it's 50-50 at first. So we've made a lot of changes to the Dice Tower in the past years. So let's, in reverse order, changing Dice Tower Con to Dice Tower East was a change.
Mm-hmm.
We dropped, we added Mandy and Suzanne to the podcast. I changed to live stuff. I started Board Game Breakfast. That was a big change. Eric coming on as a host after Sam. Sam coming on a host after Joe Stedman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are all major changes, and I don't know that I've ever made a major change without having a very, very loud negative wave on that. Some louder than others, depending on the change. And in almost every case, it has dissipated and gone away as time went by. Because when you make a change, a few people will say, good job, but most people are comfortable with the way things are. You know, I find this all the time in different instances of life. If I change anything, whether it's from home, I could be like, guys, we're going to be eating breakfast at this time instead of this time. 10 minutes later, my kids would be like, wait, what? You know, that's just how people are in general.
Yeah.
And you could say, I don't like the new thing. And people always say, listen, I'm not trying to criticize. I just have honest. I don't like this change. I get it. But as a consumer, as a content producer, it feels like there's a lot more of bad. And it doesn't really. Like when we go to a convention, and Eric can attest to this, we go to Essen, I don't think anyone there said anything negative the whole time.
No, they were all very friendly.
Well, they're also friendly to Eric online too, so there's that. But
that's true.
But people are very nice in person, so that helps. And then, so he mentions that he was going through Nick's thing. he was going through and listening to the early podcasts, and he says he's struck by some things. Top 10 lists have been there since the very beginning, and that's something I've always liked. I make a top 10 list of everything. The ideas of turkeys and kangaroos, that's because it was me and Joe Stedman, Tom Turkey and Joey Kangaroo.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that as much anymore, but I still think it's an interesting aspect of the show where we talk about older things and how our opinions on them have changed.
Yeah, we hit there eventually, and we'll often talk about it when we come around to them in top 10 lists or in the 5, 10, 15-year look-back lists.
Then he mentions things that have gone by the wayside. Lots of war game content. That was Joe. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, our war game audience was not that big to begin with. It's a small part of... It's like if I said, we're going to do the show, and it's going to be half games and the other half party games.
Right.
It's not really a half. That's a partial. Even if we said we're going to do half the show on cooperative games, we would have less. And fantasy session reports, I think we did 2 of those. And you know how I was just talking about negative feedback? I don't believe there was a single positive feedback on those.
Oh, I remember those. I listened to those.
Those were pretty bad. So here's the thing, folks. I have ideas for the show all the time. I'll be like, hey, this is like fun. Let's try this. And I try new things. And sometimes I'm like, yep, that was a bad idea. Yeah.
But you don't know till you try, really.
Yeah.
You got to give it a whirl.
And a lot of things that have done really well have been things I thought of. So there you go. And let's see. He says he finds it funny that the first name Eric from the early episodes is not the first name Eric of now. Who was it? Who were we talking about?
I have no idea. What other Eric was there?
Eric Hollemont from Days of Wonder, maybe?
But that was like one interview segment many years ago.
Maybe.
I don't know.
He says his main surprise is how many games from then are talked about today. Ticket to Ride, Bang, TI3, well, we say TI4 now, and Cosmic Encounter. And we're still talking about them now. And he's wondering how much the terrific games were available around 2004, 2005 prompted the start of the podcast. No, but 2004, 2005 was definitely when gaming exploded, in my opinion. Fantasy Flight, I mean, I still say 2004. 2012 is pretty strong too, but 2004 is one of the strongest years in gaming, period.
Yes. Yeah.
That 2004, 2005 double year was just amazing for games. And that just happened to be when we started the Dice Tower. I don't know that we started because of all those games. We started because podcasting was becoming a thing then.
Right. And
he still wants to know, does Sam still have the Darth Vader card from the Star Wars CCG? I don't know, actually. I think Sam has a little bit of that Star Wars, but we don't have much. And then he mentions 2020 will be the 15th anniversary of the Dice Tower. Is that true?
I think so, yeah. You started in 2005. October of 2005, I think.
Will we hit podcast 666 in that time frame?
I don't know. I'll
yeah,
have to
we
do
will.
The math.
No, if we're at 631 now, that's only 35 episodes. That will definitely happen next year.
Yeah?
Maybe I'll pick a different number.
Maybe
650, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, we'll probably do something. And do I think Eric Lang is developing the mythological Euro trash games Blood Rage, Rising Sun, Ankh based on the mythologies from different continents, and therefore we should expect 3 more? Maybe, but he was very adamant that this was the last one.
I think that was his goal.
And yes, money talks, but I think you'll see him mess with other things, and that this particular trilogy is finished. That was a lot of questions all over the place. But let me say this, since we're on this subject. In a few weeks, the week of Thanksgiving, I want to say it's the 24th, 25th, we're doing a live 24-hour marathon. Ooh. Eric is unfortunately not able to make it this year.
No.
But he will be at the cruise, so there's that coming up in January. But Joe Stedman, the original podcast, the podcaster, will be there. And he's about to have his mind blown because he's been out of board gaming for like the last 5 years. And he says he's coming back, but he doesn't know what exists. So we're going to beat him in a lot of games. Live.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Super fun. So that's coming up. Check out the video channel for more information. And we're going to be giving away games for that. Awakened Realms is we're going to be giving away a copy of Tainted Grail and all kinds of stuff from there. So.
Okay.
All right, let's get back to questions.
Well, similarly,
Eric, I didn't record any of that.
What? Ah!
Oh, wait. I recorded on the other stream, so you'll just have to rip it from there.
Okay. Exciting. Continuing?
Yep.
Similarly, a long-winded question from Jared. Does Patchwork count as a rondel game?
I let Eric read the short questions.
So I guess in theory, kind of, but it's not quite the same thing. A rondel is typically a circular action track, where you move a certain number of spaces forward and then take that action. But you're usually not removing things from the rondel. Whereas Patchwork, you have a big circular track of pieces, and you get to move a certain number forward and take one of those pieces and put it on your board. But then that piece is gone from the rondel, from the track. So I don't think it's quite the same thing. Patchwork is much more of a circular drafting game, whereas a rondel is action selection.
Yeah, I agree with Eric.
Woo! Points.
Sam says Stonemaier Games placed a limited time embargo on ratings for their newly announced game Tapestry. Because of this, it appears that many Board Game Geek users have revolted and rated the game poorly anyway, resulting in what appears to be a very skewed low rating for the game's Board Game Geek listing. Do you think this was a naturally expected outcome, or do you think it was an oversight, and do you think the game's Board Game Geek rating for the game will recover? Sam asked this question on September 3rd. Today is November... Is today November 3rd?
Today's November 3rd, yeah.
All right, so 2 months old. We're catching up on questions, folks.
We're getting there.
So the answer to that is yes, it has recovered. I went and checked it, and while there is quite a few negative ratings, like I want to say there's like 100 ones or something. There's a lot.
Really?
But those have been maybe it's only 90 or something like that. But I mean, it's a lot comparatively. It is currently ranked. Where's the ranking here? It's ranked at 364 in the database, which is extremely high. I don't think I can emphasize how high that ranking is. It's a 7.64 out of 10,000 games. It has 95 ones, 35 twos, 62 threes, but it has 446 tens, 739 nines, and 1,100 eights. So these reactionary things, look, if you don't like the game, then rate the game poorly. I don't have a problem with that. If you like it, rate it great. If you don't like what he's doing with the limited time embargo, that's fine too. But you shouldn't rate the game poorly because of that. That's not useful to people. That's like me going and saying, is the food at this restaurant good? And you're like, well, I don't know, but the owner's cat keeps me up at night, so it's a 1. Worst food in town. I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, I understand you're angry, but that's not what we asked.
Right. I want to know if the food is good, not if the guy's cat's annoying.
I mean, this is like a reactionary rating sort of thing, and this happens every once in a while. I remember many years ago, crossword pyramids having a campaign against it because the publishers had put up a bunch of 10s under fake accounts, and a bunch of other people put 1s to counteract those 10s, and that sort of thing is what this is. This is we don't like this practice, so we're not going to reward them by allowing the ratings to go up, and so a bunch of 1s. But like you said, that's not what is being rated. You're rating the game, not the practices of the company.
This is hilarious. I was very, very interested in this whole thing, and the Crossroad Pyramids that only has 52 ratings total. Mm-hmm. But at the time, this was 2004. It was a really big deal on the internet. I remember everyone screaming about it. This one's ranked 11,051.
Yeah, crossword pyramids. Yes.
Yeah.
Ryan asks, "What is your biggest gaming blind spot?" A specific popular game or style of game that you have no or very little experience with. I've never played Magic, even though I love Netrunner and Hearthstone. And similarly, what's your biggest pop culture blind spot? Ryan says his is Mighty Ducks. Never seen any of them. Although I've missed several Marvel Cinematic Universe movies as well.
Well, go watch those movies.
Yes.
And including the Mighty Ducks. I think the Mighty Ducks 1 and 2 have aged well.
Sure.
3's okay. Although I will say with 1 and 2, you will not. There's some very 90s references amongst those kids. But I still.
Sure.
It cracks me up, Eric. I've been in Iceland country now for the convention twice. They were some of the nicest people around. But their team in Mighty Ducks 2 was so evil. They were like, their coach, everything. It was like the evil Icelandic hockey team.
Yes.
All right. Anyhow, all right. Gaming blind spot, easy for me. Heavier war games and 18xx games. I have almost no experience with it. I understand what they are to some degree. I just don't have the time to put into them.
Yeah, I'd say for gaming, probably 18xx is a pretty big hole. Phil Eklund games, the heavier, like all the PAX Porfirianas and Pamirs and all that stuff. I haven't played any of those. And pop culture blind spot, The Godfather. Never seen any of those.
Really?
Yeah, I don't really have an interest to. The mafia movies never really landed with me. But yeah, that one's a no.
Well, I've never seen what's the Rosebud thing?
Citizen Kane.
I've never seen Citizen Kane.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, and I feel like because I know what Rosebud is, but that I'm sure there's much more to the movie than that.
Well, Casablanca I haven't seen either, and yet I know like half the dialogue from the movie.
Right.
Because it's so perpetuated pop culture. Okay, but if we're talking about modern pop culture, I'm pretty bad when it comes to pop culture music. I know a lot of songs, but I like esoteric stuff. So like if you ask me about anything heavy metal, you can mention bands and drummers and all that, and I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Stranger Things, I'm trying to correct. I'm only like halfway through season 2 of that. But for a long time, I had zero familiarity with that.
That's like made for you.
I know, but I also can't watch it unless the kids are asleep. And so there's only so many hours to make that happen.
Actually, I can do some math for you and tell you how many hours there is. But all right,
I'm sure.
Well, there you go.
Some of it I'm recording a podcast.
He could be watching it right now.
I could be, but I'm talking to you.
Speaking of talking, let's get to some gateway introductory games.
Woohoo! So, will you be able to script the...
Yeah, I'll figure it out. It's just going to be... Yeah, I'll figure it out. My hat, it has 3 corners. 3 corners has my hat. And had it not 3 corners, it would not be my hat. It has 3 corners. 3 corners has my... And had it not 3 corners, it would not be my hat. It has corners. Corners has my... And had it not corners, it would not be my... It has corners. Corners has... And had it not corners, it would not be...
It's funny, this sounds like the connection keeps dropping out.
Has... And had it not, it would not be...
And now...
I got to keep the crowd entertained.
Oh, good. Good.
While you are out there. And last time, apparently, I forgot to start the recording. But I started it this time.
You were so concerned with entertaining everyone. All right, I am ready.
All right, here we go. Okay, so our top 10 introductory games. This is a list that we haven't done for a while. This is
Has it really been that long?
It seems like it has been. If not, we'll pretend. But I don't remember doing this one recently. And even if we have done this recently, I've definitely changed the games on it.
Yeah, it's good to shuffle this one up every once in a while. I tried to stick some... there's some classics on here for sure, but I've tried to stick some newer ones in there as well.
One of the major differences is that I tried to put games that I know for sure are in print that people can get. I think we both did that, except only one of us did.
Okay. There might be a gap in here somewhere.
You also might be surprised that neither of us picked what would be considered two of the biggest games in this genre. The one that everyone used to say for the longest time was Catan. True. And neither of us has put Catan on our list.
Yeah, it was shortlisted for sure, but I think there's enough pointy edges in Catan that I'm not really considering it an introductory game.
Okay, I don't like it as much as the other ones. That's why. And then the other one is Carcassonne. Neither of us.
That was very close to being on my list as well.
I agree. It's like in my top 20. It's just that I just picked the other ones instead. I tried to pick a kind of a mix of stuff. Let's find out how it goes. We'll start with Eric.
Let's begin with something that is actually very similar to Catan. One player rolls the dice and everybody gets stuff based on what they have in front of them. That is Machi Koro. You have a certain number of cards. You're buying more cards as you gain money, and eventually you're achieving certain landmarks in order to win the game. And I like this one a lot. It is simpler than some of the other games in the genre that may show up and be discussed soon, but I think this is the easiest entry point for this style of game. Machi Koro, number 10.
Machi Koro would have been a possible on my list, but I have a better game later on.
Yeah. Although I should note, the Legacy version is also an excellent entry point into the Legacy style of game.
That I agree on, 100%. My number 10 is the newest game on my list, and that is Fantastic Factories. This is a really highly produced, fun game that I've had really great success actually teaching people to play games. In Fantastic Factories, you have a bunch of cards in your hand, and each round you're going to roll some dice. You'll then place these dice on a little board, and it'll produce metal and electricity for you. You'll use that metal electricity to build cards. You then can put dice on these cards to produce more metal electricity and or sometimes points. And you're trying to get points, and also the cards are worth points, and at the end of the game, whoever's most points is the winner. Really simple, but it's a lot of fun, and it lets people do really fun, interesting combos. So if you like those kind of engine-building games, this does that in a very, very accessible way with really high-quality components. I'm very impressed with this one. Fantastic Factories.
Hey, that's my fish.
No! I'm eating it. I already stuck it in my mouth. I licked it.
Ugh.
You should lick a fish, I guess.
Don't do that. It's an abstract game with a bunch of cute little penguins, and it's very simple to explain. You want fish. You need to step on the fish to claim those tiles, and also cordon off sections of the board so that all those fish are yours. That would be great, right? It's very simple to explain. Lots of different editions of this, mini versions, full-size versions. Great game for introducing new folks. Hey, that's my fish, number 9.
Good choice, Eric. My number 9 is a party game, and I was hesitant to put a party game on this list at all.
Yeah.
Because party games, by their very nature, anybody is willing to play them. But Dixit is a little bit of a step up. Because Dixit encourages you to be really, really clever, but does so in an easy way. You put a card down in the middle of the table, face down, give everybody a clue about that card, anything you want, and you want some of the people to guess which card is yours after everyone else throws one in, but not everybody. So you're giving a somewhat vague clue. And it's pretty entertaining and fun, and I've had this one just go over extremely well. That's Dixit.
Yeah, I considered this one as well, and I agree that leaving party games off this list was the way to go. This was much more of the entry point to more complex style games, but I agree that this works as an entry point to party games that are a little more cerebral. And paving the way for stuff like Mysterium or Codenames down the line. So good choice.
We're being so nice to each other.
My number 8 is Reef. The game about building patterns of lovely chunky pieces, drafting cards to acquire these pieces, and using those cards to score the pieces that you've already positioned on the board. This introduces cool concepts of chaining and using one card to prepare for another, and really figuring out what order you're going to place things in, but without adding too many extra rules into that. This is all about the execution, not necessarily the comprehension of the rules, and that's why I think it's a very strong intro game. Reef, number 8.
Reef was my number 11.
Okay.
It would have been higher on my list, but I was trying to spread it out between designers, actually.
Okay.
My number 8's higher on Eric's list, which is nonsense, and I'm going to whoop him up. His character, not him. His character.
Now's your chance, Tom. Number 7, Tom's number 8, King of Tokyo. Everybody understands the Yahtzee mechanism. You roll the dice, you can keep some, and you can roll them again, roll one more time. And the theming of this, the style of the game, giant monsters battling each other, just immediately you know what's going on. You want to smack the other monsters, you want cool powers to be able to do more things and crazy effects, and it's just good fun. I do prefer Tokyo over New York when teaching new people, just because it's a simpler entry point. So as far as an intro game goes, King of Tokyo, number 7.
Yep, that was my number 8. Totally agree. This one's just fantastic. And Eric's right. Almost everybody understands Yahtzee to the point where when I explain the game, I almost always say the phrase, just like Yahtzee.
Yep.
My number 7 is very accessible to people if you like the theme at all, and most everyone does, and that's Disney Villainous. The whole idea of playing one of the villains from Disney, everyone likes that. This game seems simple on the onset, but there's quite a bit of strategy in this game, and each villain plays very differently. So it teaches a whole lot of concepts, but I think people are willing to come along for the ride because the theme makes sense. Everyone has seen these movies. Not everyone, but it feels like everybody has. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of fun. Highly recommended. This is one game I think a lot of people, you'll easily get people into gaming by showing them this one, just because on the theme alone. But it's actually a pretty strong game, Disney Villainous.
You know, that's actually, I hadn't really considered this to be on the list, but it really is a terrific entry point game because of the theme and the fact that those mechanisms are married to the way Ursula works in the movies makes sense. So yeah, this is a good selection.
I have never had such praise.
It's the entry point here. We're trying to draw people in, and then we'll criticize their choices later. My number 6 was originally going to be Pandemic/Forbidden Island, and I was going to talk about how co-op games are really strong and should be on this list somewhere, and then I saw Tom's list and what he has coming up later, and I swapped it out. I know Tom accuses me of this all the time, but this time it's true. I took out Pandemic, and I was afraid to do it at first, but now I'm no longer afraid.
All right, my number 6, that's a really long nothing, but all right. My number 6 is Planet. Planet is a game that's going to attract people because it has these big icosahedrons that players have, these 12-sided planets with magnets on them, and you're sticking, or the metal pieces on them, and then you're sticking little magnets all over them, making a planet. You draft them, you build your planet, and then you look and see how much land area you have of different types, and you attract animals to your planet. Really easy, and yet diehard gamers can play it too, but it's a nice easy game, and it's really attractive visually. Blue Orange does a good job doing that. I like this one a lot, so my number 6, Planet.
And dodecahedron is such a fun word to say.
Did I say icosahedron?
I think you did.
Well, I think I'm right. No,
dodecahedron.
No, it is dodecahedron. Sorry. Yep. No, I never taught math. Don't worry about it.
No
judging. I'm
not judging anything. My number 5 is Roll For It. This is a Calliope Games title from Chris Leader, and it's very simple worker placement, actually. Resource management. You got 6 dice, you roll them on your turn, and you assign them to various cards. One card might need 2 2s and a 3 in order to score it. Others might need 4 or 5 or 6 sixes in order to score that card. And you can assign them to these cards and then roll the remainder on your next turn. So how many dice do you try and assign to a particular card? Do you spread them out? Do you focus on one, hoping to get the high-scoring cards that you need 6 of the same number to score? Very simple resource management, worker placement, basically, for Roll For It, my number 5.
Yeah, there's a lot of rolling games you could put on these lists, honestly.
Sure. Yeah.
My number 5 is a deck builder, and the idea of building your own deck is one that's not necessarily easy to do. And I thought about putting the base game of Dominion, because that's not that complex, or maybe even a simpler one, but I think Clank works because of the theme. People know the whole get in, get the treasure, get out. If you watch Indiana Jones, that's how that works. Grab the idol, run. And that's the whole point of Clank. And there's a little bit of deck building along the way. Clank in space is also quite good, but it's more complex. Clank itself, the base game without any expansions, is pretty accessible, and I think a lot of that has to do with the theme being so strong. And I really think that has a lot to do with some games being easy to get into. So I like this one a lot. My number 5, Clank.
I agree. It's a solid game. My benchmark for these intro games, gateway games, is my mother-in-law, and I just don't see my mother-in-law playing Clank. I think it's just one step beyond what I would consider intro.
But I also feel like she would not be interested in that theme.
Sure. However, she might be interested in collecting gems, which is why Splendor is my number 4. This is a very simple engine builder. You're collecting chips that represent gems and spending those on cards, which will produce more gems and points. There's 3 different levels of the cards. You start out building the very simple ones, very similar to Project L, which we talked about earlier in the show. Build the simple ones, get those to sort of build your economy going, and then use those to build the 2nd and 3rd level cards. And those chips are cool. Splendor, number 4.
Yeah, this one's a fantastic one, and the only reason I didn't put it on my list was because of my number 4, which knocked it off, and that's Century Spice Road. They're both very similar in how they feel, even though the themes are different, and even though they both are essentially themeless. But Century Spice Road, designed by Emerson Matsuuchi, who did Reef, which Eric had at number 8.
Yep.
It's such an easy game. You take a card, you play a card, or you spend gems to buy a card and get points. That's it. And there's so many cool strategies, and when people play this game, they think they're being smarter than they are. And I don't mean that to be negative towards folks, like but no, you feel like, wow. People are like, wow, this game is strategy. In fact, I was talking to somebody today, and he said to me, hey, I played this new game, Ticket to Ride. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. He's like, have you heard of it? I said, yes. And he said, well, it's kind of like Century Spice Road, because I had taught him Century Spice Road a couple years ago when it came out. Okay. And he and his wife had been playing it. And he's like, that was his baseline for the introductory game, and he was moving on to Ticket to Ride now, which I thought was hilarious.
That's awesome.
So, but this game is, and this one, now there's 3 different Century games, if you're listening. I mean, well, there's actually 5, but Century Spice Roads and Century Golem Edition, that's the exact same game with 2 different themes. You take your pick. There's also Century Eastern Wonders and Century A New World. Those are sequels. They're both good, and you can combine them with the first one, but if you've never played games before, Century Spice Road is the way to go.
I agree. This is a solid choice, and I do agree that it is a more interesting game than Splendor, just because you're doing all those cube translations and all these different cards that do cool things. The cards in Splendor just sort of produce goods. It's just not as interesting and puzzly as Spice Road. But I also felt that Spice Road was just a little step beyond my mother-in-law, which is why it isn't on my list.
Does your mother-in-law know you're using her for this?
No. My number 3 is Transamerica. the route building game. You're trying to connect your 5 cities all across the U.S. and all you're doing on your turn is placing 1 or 2 routes based on whether you're crossing rivers or mountains or just moving across the plains, connecting to other people's networks, and it's a speed game. And then when one round is done, you score and basically set up and do it again. So it works very well for introducing new players to the system. Also, if you play with the Vexation expansion, which is not that difficult to add to the system, it is a far more interesting game and not that difficult to just throw that in right in the beginning. Transamerica, my number 3.
So where should I buy this?
Didn't they just come out with a new version of Transamerica?
In Germany only.
It's got to be out there somewhere. There's
Sure.
copies floating around.
Sure. So I wouldn't worry about it, folks, if you can't find it, because it's not nearly as good as Eric says.
Oh, come on.
Also, there's a game that blows it out of the water that may have already been mentioned. Mm-hmm. All right, my number 3 is the reason I didn't put Machi Koro on the list, and that's Space Base. I understand that Space Base has a few cards which are a little funky comparative to Machi Koro, but I still have found great success teaching this to people. It's also, I think, a little bit less mean than Machi Koro, which will turn some people off. Sometimes you play Machi Koro and that whole negative aspect is just not something people want. Also, Space Base, I don't know, I love it. I'll play it a gazillion times over. But lots of fun. Highly recommend it. Space Base.
Yeah, this is another instance where I think I probably prefer the gameplay of Space Base, but I think it's a little beyond my entry point. Number 2 is a very straightforward card game called For Sale. This is an intro to the auction game. In part 1, you are auctioning to get various cards that represent houses, they ranging from like a cardboard box all the way up to a space station, ranging from, I think, 1 to 30 is the numbers. And that's around the first half of the game. You spend your tokens that you start with, get these cards. Now you have a hand of cards and maybe some leftover money. And then you spend the cards to acquire checks. And you don't even have to explain the second half of the game. When you start the game, just get some cards and then use those cards to get checks. And then whoever has the most money at the end of the game wins. For Sale, number 2.
Amazing game. Fantastic game. Eric has made a good choice. My number 2 is Eric's number 6, and that's Horrified. And I think, again, I've had so much success lately. I feel like I'm talking about this game all the time, and I don't care. It's just one of those games where you play it, and I'm like, this is such a fantastic game. The theme works. It's spooky, but not too spooky. It's thematic, but the mechanics also are very simple as you just run around and fight monsters, and the replayability is really high. Trying to stop Dracula and Frankenstein and the creature, the creature from the Black Lagoon, and the Invisible Man, and who am I missing? The Wolfman and Mummy.
Yep.
So much fun. Horrified. Highly recommended.
Yeah, I mean, it just, this sort of game could have been very complicated, but everything just boils down to collect some stuff, get it where it needs to go, and achieve whatever the specific goal is for getting rid of this monster. And so it's almost like a cooperative pick up and deliver quest. It all just seems to make sense, and working together, and your special powers all connect and click, and it really is I used to say Pandemic was the intro point, and as we mentioned on my list, this one is just a little bit easier to understand and grasp immediately, and jump right into playing, which is where the fun comes. So I agree, Horrified. My number 1, I don't know when the last time we did this list was, but I am pretty sure that Can't Stop was, if not number 1, very close to it. This is another dead simple game. You got to get to the top of the tracks, you roll your 4 dice, combine them into pairs, and that's how you move up the track. Keep going until you make a mistake. It's right there in the name. You can't stop unless you want to, and then that's safe. But really, you could maybe win on the next turn if you don't stop. So just keep rolling, Tom. Go ahead. Just keep rolling.
Do you think you need to convince me to do this?
No, I don't. I tried to get you to stop.
I will never stop.
Anyway.
You can't stop the beat.
It's a different thing entirely.
Listen, in the 60s, no one would ever have won this game. All right. My number one is still the same old number one it's been since 2004, and that's Ticket to Ride.
Yep.
It's really hard for me to not put this on the list. I mean, you could put an inferior train game like Transamerica. And don't even roll your eyes, because the world agrees with me on this one. You are alone.
I know, but this is the mother-in-law rule again. This is more complex than I think she's able to handle.
I'm really struggling not to say something negative about your mother-in-law on the air. Ticket to Ride is easy to understand. No, okay. Tell me how Ticket to Ride is more complicated than, say, Splendor. It's not.
It's the point scoring. It's the, how many points is 4 trains worth? It's 7, but
were you at? That was a question. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 7, 5, 10, 6, 15. Okay. 7, 21. Don't even do that.
That's not necessarily immediately
it's
absorbable.
Written on the board.
I know, but it's in small print, and
Whatever. Ticket to Ride works. Buy it for your friends, your relatives, your boss, your loved ones, your hated ones.
I'm not saying. So you know what? We did that. We bought Ticket to Ride. Tons of people in our first year or two of gaming when Ticket to Ride was released, and we bought it for a ton of people, and then it sat there unplayed.
That's not the game's fault. I think that's just you shouldn't. I don't know that you should buy a game for someone without playing it with them.
Well, we were told this was the gateway. Like, this is the entry point. You buy this for someone, and they'll be playing games before you know
there's
it.
There's a little bit of shade being thrown at me here, but all right. Know your audience. Ticket to Ride is a great game.
It is a great game.
All right, let's see what People's Choice said. Number 10, Seven Wonders. Kind of, although I'm always convinced Seven Wonders is a little more complex than people think.
Yeah, I would go for a different drafting game than Seven Wonders.
9, Dominion. But it better be base Dominion. 8, Azul. Of course, I would have put Azul on my list because it's very, very definitely a big one in this regard. It's probably the biggest gateway game to come out in the last several years, but I just don't like it as much as the other games on my list. Codenames, number 7, party-style game.
Yeah.
6, Catan. The people did not forget Catan. 5, Splendor. 4, Pandemic, which Eric almost put on his list. 3, King of Tokyo. 2, Carcassonne, and 1, Ticket to Ride. I'll say this. If you have these 10 games on your shelf, that's not a bad start. Ticket to Ride, Carcassonne, King of Tokyo's, Pandemic, Splendor, Catan, Codenames Azul, Dominion, Seven Wonders. That's like a who's who of games.
It is.
Alrighty. Well, that's that. Don't forget to tune in next week for Mandy and Suzanne, and we'll be back. We're kind of on a normal schedule here for a while. We'll do our best end of the year coming up.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're 2 months away from the end of the year.
I feel like I just need to play a few more games from Essen, and I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Okay.
Although there's always, every year, there's going to be a couple games we miss. But I am excited about it. Yeah. I'm excited to see what our best of the year will be. I haven't even done it in my head. I've been deliberately not thinking about it too much. All right. Well, anyway, folks, thanks for that. Hey, we can always use more questions. Send them in to us at questions@dicetower.com, and maybe you'll hear your question on the show. And like I said, if you want to, we're getting close to the end of the year. And next year in the winter, early winter, is Dice Tower West, and in the summer is Dice Tower East. Great shows to come to. Dice Tower West is really close to selling out at this point. So
cool.
You'll probably just hear us talking about Dice Tower East after that, and then who knows when that will sell out. So either way, if you want to have fun playing games, think about those. Meanwhile, though, I'm going to go play some games. I'm going to go teach. No joke. When we're done here, I'm going to teach my kids Ticket to Ride. Some of them haven't played it yet.
Okay.
But there's another reason for that, which I'll mention in a future show.
Okay.
Stay tuned. Until then, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to the Dice Tower.
I'm off to play games too, but I don't know which of the Essen releases to bring, because I can't bring them all.
Do you have Aquatica?
I don't have Aquatica.
Oh, that would be the one I would recommend. How about play Marco Polo 2? Everybody
I didn't get that one either.
All right, well, tell me what you have.
I've got Expedition to New Dale.
Yeah, take that one. Everyone likes that one.
Yeah, okay. I think that's probably coming with me. All right, I guess I can stop there then.
Yeah, it's because you didn't remember the other ones. Alrighty, let's finish this. Ba-doop-ba-doo.